Despite 125,000 miles on my wife's daily driver, a 2015 Audi A3 TDI, the rear shoes still had some life left in them. That said, I'm going to take you through how to change the pads, but most importantly, how you just use a 12-volt battery charger and some multimeter leads to back off the electronic brake on these rear calipers, so you don't need a fancy tester to turn that off. Stay tuned.
Hi, thank you for tuning in to the Guys with Rides YouTube channel. As much fun as it is to work on the Porsche 928, the Porsche Boxster, and the Cadillac Eldorado behind me, sometimes you need to keep your daily drivers running well, especially your wife's. With 125,000 miles, my wife's 7-year-old 2015 Audi A3 TDI diesel is in need of a brake job. The rear brakes are actually the original, and the front brakes, I've replaced the pads 2 times, but unfortunately the rotors have become warped with that high mileage. The nuance with modern Volkswagen and Audi cars is the electric emergency brake. In order to change the rear brake pads, you cannot just simply compress the piston in the calipers. There is a DC motor that controls that basically uses the brake caliper as the emergency brake. While it's a simpler system, it poses a unique problem because you need to spin what's a direct current or DC motor. You need to spin that to have the piston back off as far as it can. Once that's done, then you can compress the cylinder in the normal way. So I'm going to take you through the rear brake procedure as I did it. I'm going to show this I'm going to demonstrate it just on the rear passenger side and take you through what I had. All right, so the first thing is there are 2 dust caps that hold what's the backing plate onto the main mount of the rear brake assembly. So you need to take those plastic caps off. All right, using a standard Allen wrench, once you have those dust covers off, these, at least in my case, broke loose fairly easily, and it was just a matter of loosening them up. I'm speeding it up here because they are a long thread, and you need to rotate them quite a bit to get them off. And my little trick is just take a small screwdriver, and you know they're done when you can push them through the boss on the caliper assembly, like so. From there, there's a clip on the front side of the caliper that needs to be taken off, and I just used you can see that the caliper is now loose. Those 2 bolts are off, so it's just a matter of wedging a screwdriver in there and removing that clip assembly. So with that clip off, it was a matter of still using my big screwdriver to pry off slowly the caliper from the mount. Just working my way back and forth, and it's off. Always have to be careful with the caliper. Don't pinch the brake line itself. And where my left hand is right now is that motor assembly, the DC motor that controls the emergency brake. So there I'm just taking the front pad off. Hard to tell, but that's 125,000 miles, and it got cut off. There's still a lot of pad left on the back pads. But at this point, I just wanted to, for safety's sake, the rotor you can see is getting rusted, and it's 7 years old. So, all right, now the caliper bracket assembly uses these special, I forget what the nut's called, and of course they're on pretty tight. And my standard 18-inch breaker bar, I managed to get this one off after putting some spray lubricant on. That one broke free, but you'll see in a little bit that I still had to let the lubricant spray in there. So I decided to go ahead and take the motor off. So here you see me wedging a screwdriver in to the clip on the back side of the DC motor. And then I use, with that clip open, then you're able to pry off the switch. Now that I've got the rotor off, I wanted to get the bracket off as well. And so I ended up using another breaker bar that I have mounted in an old pipe, and that's what it took to really get the torque of that to go. And once I had that broke, I could then just use my socket to get that off. Unfortunately, you need to remove the caliper bracket in order to get the rotor off. While this was going on, I sprayed liquid wrench throughout the inside of the rotor so that I had a fairly good shot of getting it off. All right, now you see me putting a pair of vice grips on, because without the e-brake on, there's no way to hold the rotor in place, and there's one cap screw that you need to remove in order to be able to take the rotor off. All right, now you see me spraying more of the liquid wrench on the back side now that the caliper assembly's off and the caliper is off. Needed to do that because it just would not come off after, again, 7 years, 125,000 miles. I'm not surprised. So while that was soaking more, you see my battery charger, and there's the clips with multimeter clips, and now you're going to see me put them, these pigtails from just a standard multimeter. You stick them in, and now you're going to hear the motor running. Right then and there, when you hear that different pitch, that's when you know the motor's backed off. And the other thing to note is you need to get the polarity right. It's a DC motor, so if you need to keep an eye on the piston itself. If you have the polarity wrong, the piston will start compressing out away from the motor. So make sure you have the polarity right before you go very far with it. So with that job done, now you can see mechanically I can use my spreader bar to back off the piston in the caliper the traditional way you would, so that I can get the caliper back onto the new thicker brake pads. And now with all of that done, it's a matter of working the rotor with a sledgehammer. I'm not going to, just keep going, work around, and eventually it will pop off with all that liquid wrench behind it. I basically just wiped it down. I didn't go too crazy with sanding it or anything, and just wanted to put the new rotor on. Once that's aligned up and I have the flathead screw back on, I can tighten it up with the special Torx head that's needed to do that. Now it's a matter of reassembly with the brand new rotor on. So here I am putting the caliper bracket back in place. And in the kit I bought from FCP Euro, this lubricant came with it. So I'm just putting all the contact points, brake grease. Some may be watching this and might want to criticize the way I do it, but at the end of the day, I don't have any squeaking the way I do it, and it does the job. So with the grease in, here I am sliding it into the caliper bracket. That's the back shoe. Procedure's the same for the front. And now with the caliper piston backed off far enough, it's just a matter of getting the caliper back over the shoes and onto the bracket. You'll note that the front shoe has that little spring clip on it. You need to make sure that's above the top of the caliper. And here I am now with the caliper properly back in place. I'm just tightening down those Allen screws that hold the caliper to the bracket and act as the float. Finally, it's just a matter of putting those plastic dust caps back on over the caliper float bolts, making sure everything's in place properly, and the job's done. Other than having to use my battery charger and some multimeter leads to back out that electric motor, it was a pretty straightforward process. So you probably have a battery charger that's 12 volt laying around, and if you have a multimeter, you can use the clips from that, or go to Harbor Freight and buy the leads like I had. In doing that, you circumvent the need for an expensive computer to try and work through the car's computer system to back off. My fear was that if I did this way, perhaps the computer would not recognize the e-brake. But what was nice is once I got in the car, started it, and pumped up the brakes and checked the e-brake, everything's working fine. There's no error codes. So again, it's a great way to do the brake job without the need for a computer on late model Volkswagens and Audis with an electric brake. I hope you find this video helpful. If you do, please press the like button. So thanks for watching. If you haven't checked it out, please check our main website, guyswithrides.com, where in addition to daily content where we search the internet for Craigslist classifieds, we also auction cars, so check those out as well. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.